This is not a rumor you scroll past. This is not a sources say that fades by tomorrow. This is the kind of story that detonates careers, rewrites legacies, and turns one of hip-hop's most celebrated love stories into a public crime scene in real time. Because overnight, the streets exploded with one sentence that changed everything. Papoose is allegedly planning to propose to his new girlfriend. And the moment that whisper hit the timeline, Remy lost it. What happened next wasn't shade. It wasn't subliminals. It wasn't quiet heartbreak. It was a full-blown crash-out that left fans stunned, alliances shattered, and private messages dragged into the daylight like evidence in a courtroom. People woke up to chaos, screenshots everywhere, accusations flying, threats, tears, and a level of emotional warfare that felt way too raw to be scripted. For years, Remy and Papo were untouchable. The blueprint. The couple everyone pointed to when they talked about loyalty, sacrifice, and real love surviving the worst storms. Prison time, industry pressure, temptation. They beat it all, or so we thought. Because now, insiders are saying the truth was rotting behind the scenes long before this new woman ever entered the picture. And that new woman, she's not hiding, she's confident, she's public, she's unbothered, and allegedly, she's ready to be his wife. So when word got back to Remy that this wasn't just a fling, but a ring situation, something snapped. Posts turned reckless. Receipts started leaking. And suddenly, the love story everyone admired became the messiest breakup hip-hop has seen in years. The question isn't whether Papoose is booed up. The question is how far this is about to go now that the gloves are off and nobody's protecting the image anymore. The moment the rumor surfaced, it didn't float, it slammed. One whispered sentence ripped through hip-hop circles like a siren in the middle of the night. Papoose isn't just dadding, he's allegedly planning to propose. Not someday, not hypothetically, soon. And according to multiple insiders, the name attached to that plan was Remy Ma. That single detail turned what people thought was a quiet separation into a full-scale emotional explosion. Because behind the scenes, the energy had already been tense. Friends say Remy had been telling people she was done, healed, focused, unbothered. She joked about peace. She laughed off questions. But when the proposal talk reached her phone, allegedly confirmed by someone she trusted, that calm cracked instantly. What followed wasn't a statement. It was a spiral. A chain reaction of posts, messages, and emotional outbursts that made it clear this wasn't about moving on anymore. This was about being replaced. And the timing made it worse. For years, Remy Ma and Papoose weren't just married, they were marketed as a symbol. The couple that survived prison, industry temptation, and public pressure. He waited 6 years, married her behind bars, held her down when the world expected him to fold. That image became untouchable. Fans defended it like scripture. Other couples were compared to it. And now, that same story was collapsing publicly, piece by piece, with receipts being dragged out like dirty laundry nobody planned to air. Insiders claim the real fracture began long before Clarissa Shields ever entered the picture. They say resentment built quietly. That Remy felt Papoose became controlling. That Papoose felt disrespected and humiliated by cheating rumors that wouldn't die. And when Remy was linked to battle rapper Easy the Block Captain, everything allegedly changed overnight. What was once private hurt turned into public humiliation. The streets say the confrontation between Papoose and Easy at an industry event wasn't just heated, it was explosive, allegedly physical, allegedly one-sided. And when the rumors spilled onto a battle rap stage and Remy's name was dragged into it on a mic, the damage went nuclear. Suddenly, fans weren't just whispering, they were watching the marriage unravel in real time. That's when Papoose reportedly checked out emotionally. According to people close to him, that moment shifted his mindset from fix it to finish it. He allegedly asked for a quiet divorce more than once. No drama, no posts, no mess, just separation handled off camera. But when that didn't happen, he moved on privately, or so he thought. Enter Clarissa Shields. At first, it looked harmless. Supportive comments, mutual admiration, a few appearances that fans brushed off as coincidence, but insiders say it got serious fast. Clarissa wasn't just around, she was present, supportive, publicly proud. And unlike Remy, she didn't hide it. She spoke openly about feeling loved differently, about feeling supported in a way she hadn't before. That confidence hit Remy like salt in an open wound. Remy initially played it cool, liked a few shady comments, posted gym clips, spoke about growth. But the internet doesn't miss patterns, and people noticed she was watching everything. Every post, every interview, every hint that Papoose was happier. And when word started spreading that he'd been seen shopping jewelry, that was the breaking point. What fans saw next was the crash out. Cryptic captions turned explicit. Subliminals became names. And then came the alleged screenshots. Messages that painted Clarissa as asking Papoose for honesty and reassurance, while Remy mocked her publicly, calling her desperate, embarrassing, and begging for bare minimum. It was brutal. It was messy. And it was deeply personal. Clarissa reportedly panicked. Sources say her phone blew up with calls to Papoose, worried about her image, her movie release, her career. The last thing she needed was to be labeled the other woman in a narrative dominated by hip-hop fans who already felt loyal to Remy. That pressure only escalated the situation. Then Remy went further. She accused Papoose of lying to protect his image, claimed she stayed quiet for years to preserve the black love narrative he benefited from, suggested there were receipts she'd never released, photos, messages, audio. She implied he threatened to expose her first. Each post raised the stakes higher. And once someone hints at unreleased footage, the internet stops blinking. Fans split instantly. Some said Remy was heartbroken and reacting from pain. Others said she was bitter and embarrassed that Papoose finally chose himself. Some pointed out that she'd mocked Clarissa for wanting flowers and time, only for Clarissa to respond by calling Remy's behavior clownish. And when Clarissa publicly challenged Remy to a fight, the situation crossed from messy to surreal. A world-class boxer calling out a rap legend. The date came and went. No fight happened. But by then, it didn't matter. The spectacle had already done its damage. And just when it seemed like Remy had said everything she could say, Papoose finally broke his silence. What he posted changed the entire tone. He accused Remy of repeated cheating, of manipulation, of refusing a private divorce because chaos brought attention. He claimed he stayed silent for the sake of their daughter but couldn't anymore. He denied her allegations, said some messages were fabricated, and made it clear he had moved on emotionally and physically. That response didn't calm anything. It poured gasoline on it. Because once both sides start calling each other liars, narcissists, and abusers, there's no such thing as a clean ending, only escalation. And hovering over all of it was the rumor that started this fire in the first place. A ring, a proposal, a new chapter being written without Remy's name on it. By the time the dust settled from the first wave of posts, one thing was painfully clear. This wasn't about love anymore. It was about legacy, pride, and what happens when the story you helped build no longer belongs to you. And according to the streets, the worst wasn't even out yet. The second wave hit harder because this time it wasn't emotional chaos. It was calculated exposure. Insiders say once Papoose posted his statement, Remy felt cornered, not just as an ex-wife, but as a public figure watching the narrative slip out of her control. And when that happens, especially to someone who built their reputation on strength and dominance, the response isn't quiet reflection. It's scorched earth. Within hours, new posts started surfacing that felt less like venting and more like strategy. Remy wasn't just talking about heartbreak anymore. She was reframing history, painting herself as the silent protector of an image that benefited everyone but her. She claimed she swallowed years of discomfort to keep the perfect couple illusion alive. She hinted that what fans thought was loyalty was actually leverage, and that silence was something she gave, not something she owed. That's when the tone shifted. She began referencing incidents that had never been discussed publicly, moments that allegedly happened behind closed doors, arguments that didn't stay verbal, situations that, if true, would completely flip public sympathy. She stopped just responding to Papoose's words and started threatening proof. Audio, video, timelines. She suggested that if things got uglier, it wouldn't be by accident. The internet froze. Because this wasn't rap beef. This wasn't messy dating drama. This was the kind of escalation that turns into legal nightmares if one person presses post too hard. Fans who were laughing a day earlier suddenly started saying, This is getting dark. And that's when people began asking the question nobody wanted to ask out loud. Did this marriage survive prison only to implode from everything that followed? Meanwhile, Clarissa Shields found herself dragged deeper into a war she didn't start but couldn't escape. Her attempts to defend herself only poured fuel on the fire. Every response was screenshot. Every clapback dissected. When she called Remy's behavior embarrassing and age-shamed her, fans didn't just react, they chose sides. Some applauded Clarissa's confidence. Others felt she crossed a line by engaging at all. But Clarissa wasn't backing down. She allegedly felt Remy was intentionally sabotaging her image at a critical moment in her career. A movie release, major endorsements, a carefully managed brand, all of it suddenly at risk because of someone else's unresolved marriage. Sources say Clarissa felt played too, that Papoose hadn't been fully honest about how unfinished things really were. That realization reportedly sparked intense arguments behind the scenes, arguments the public only saw fragments of through leaked messages and frantic posts. That's when the proposal rumor resurfaced with even more intensity. People close to Papoose claimed the ring talk was real, but premature. That he'd discussed marriage again, but not timelines. That he was serious, but not reckless. However, once the rumor hit Remy's ears, it didn't matter whether it was weeks away or months away. The idea that he could plan a future without her blessing felt like betrayal layered on top of betrayal. And then came the gambling accusation. Remy accused Papoose of financial pressure, of trying to control the divorce process through money, of painting himself as calm while pushing her buttons privately. Papoose fired back, calling those claims lies, saying everything could be verified, and accusing Remy of manipulating facts to justify her own behavior. Each post contradicted the last one before it. Each response escalated the stakes. Fans were no longer watching a breakup. They were watching two people try to rewrite the same history in opposite directions, in public, with their child's future hovering awkwardly in the background. And that's where public opinion really fractured. Some fans said Remy's pain was obvious and human, even if her delivery was reckless. Others said Papoose had earned the right to move on quietly after years of loyalty and humiliation. A third group said both were wrong, and the only real loser was their daughter, watching adults implode online. The comment sections became battlegrounds of morality, loyalty, and gender politics. Then came the accusation that stopped the jokes completely. Remy suggested that law enforcement had been involved in past incidents, implying violence. She claimed there were witnesses, workers, records. She said she hadn't edited anything and dared him to keep lying. That was the moment many fans stopped cheering and started worrying. Because once allegations like that enter the chat, the story isn't entertainment anymore, it's potential evidence. Papoose denied everything forcefully, called the claims false, said the police were never involved the way she described, claimed she was weaponizing serious accusations out of anger and jealousy now that he'd moved on. His tone was cold, controlled, almost legalistic. He kept repeating that he wanted peace, that he wanted a private divorce, that he didn't want to play social media games. But peace was no longer an option. Every denial triggered another allegation. Every attempt at calm looked like guilt to some and maturity to others. And Clarissa, caught in the middle, reportedly began reconsidering how public she wanted this relationship to be. Insiders say she didn't expect to inherit this level of chaos. That loving someone with an unfinished past comes with a price she wasn't prepared to pay. Yet despite all of that, she didn't leave. Instead, she doubled down. She continued speaking positively about Papoose in interviews, praised his support, described feeling protected and valued. Each compliment felt like a needle to Remy, who responded with more shade, more mockery, more reminders that Clarissa wasn't the first woman to think she'd won. And still, the ring rumors wouldn't die. Jewelry store employees allegedly whispered. Friends allegedly hinted. Likes appeared under suspicious comments. And fans began speculating that Papoose wasn't just staying quiet because he was tired. He was staying quiet because he was moving forward regardless of the noise. That possibility terrified Remy's supporters and emboldened her critics. Because if he really proposed, or even announced an engagement, everything Remy was doing would instantly be reframed from heartbreak to obsession. And insiders say she knows that, which is why people believe the next move would be the biggest one yet. The receipts she keeps hinting at, the ones she says she's been protecting him with, the ones that could end this war or destroy everyone involved. As the second wave settled, one truth became impossible to ignore. This situation was no longer about who cheated first or who moved on faster. It was about control of the story, and whoever dropped the next piece of evidence would decide how history remembers this marriage. And according to sources close to both camps, that next move was already being prepared. By the time the third wave started, the drama wasn't spiraling anymore. It was detonating with intention. This was no longer two exes arguing online. This was a calculated standoff where everyone involved knew one wrong move could permanently destroy reputations, careers, and whatever remained of a once iconic legacy. And the scariest part, nobody was blinking. Insiders say Remy Ma reached a point where embarrassment turned into resolve. People close to her claim she felt backed into a corner, watching the world slowly accept a version of events where Papoose was the calm hero and she was the unhinged villain. That narrative, according to her circle, was unbearable. Because in her mind, she had protected him, covered for him, helped build an image that he was now benefiting from while she burned. So she went quiet. And that silence scared people more than the posts ever did. Because anyone who's watched public meltdowns knows the pattern. Loud chaos first, then a pause, and then the real damage. The pause is when decisions get made. The pause is when folders get opened. The pause is when people stop venting and start choosing what to release. Fans noticed it immediately. No more ranting, no more rapid-fire captions, just cryptic lines about truth, timing, and letting people dig their own graves. The comment sections went from jokes to dread. Everyone knew what that meant. Something was coming. At the same time, Papoose's camp went into lockdown mode. Sources say he began consulting people outside his inner circle, legal advice, PR strategy, damage control. Not because he planned to respond again publicly, but because he needed to be ready if Remy followed through on her threats. His silence wasn't confidence anymore. It was caution. Because once allegations move from emotional to documented, the game changes entirely. Clarissa Shields reportedly felt the shift too. Friends say she started questioning whether love was worth this level of chaos, whether stepping into a situation with this much unresolved history was smart, even if her feelings were real. But she also felt something else, defiance, the refusal to be chased off by someone else's past, the determination to not look weak by walking away just because things got ugly. That internal tug-of-war showed in her public behavior. One day she'd appear composed, supportive, praising Papoose openly. The next day she'd like comments that felt pointed, defensive, territorial. Fans dissected everything, every emoji, every follow, every unfollow. And then she said something in an interview that reignited everything all over again. She talked about wanting marriage. Not hypothetically, not someday. She talked about it like a woman who'd already had those conversations, who'd already imagined that future. And the internet did what it always does. It connected dots faster than anyone involved wanted. The proposal rumor exploded again, louder than before. This time, people weren't whispering. They were declaring it. Engagement watch threads, zoomed-in photos of hands, blind items claiming dates and locations, alleged jewelers, alleged timelines. It didn't matter if any of it was confirmed. The belief alone was enough to set everything back on fire. Remy's name trended again. And when it did, she broke the silence, but not the way anyone expected. Instead of dropping receipts, she dropped a warning. Not a threat, a warning. She hinted that there were multiple people who knew the truth, that if she went down, she wouldn't go alone, that the public didn't even know half of what she'd protected, and that if forced to choose between peace and truth, she'd choose truth every time. That line sent chills through the internet. Because it suggested something bigger than cheating, bigger than jealousy, bigger than bitterness. It suggested secrets, the kind of secrets that don't belong on Instagram but in courtrooms. And suddenly, fans weren't cheering anymore. They were begging everyone to stop. Meanwhile, Papoose doubled down on restraint. He didn't post, he didn't respond. He focused on his daughter, on work, on moving forward quietly. But those close to him say that silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Because reacting emotionally was exactly what Remy wanted, and he wasn't going to give her that satisfaction. But restraint has limits. According to insiders, the engagement decision, whether real or rumored, became a breaking point. Not because of Remy, but because of Clarissa. She didn't want to live in limbo. She didn't want to be someone's secret or someone's scandal. She wanted clarity, direction, commitment. And that's where things got dangerous. Because if Papoose chose to propose now, it would look like provocation, like rubbing salt in an open wound, like confirming Remy's worst fears in the loudest way possible. But if he waited, it would look like Remy still had power over his future. Sources say he's torn. And that tension is exactly why this story isn't over. Because somewhere there's a decision being weighed, a message being drafted, a receipt being debated. And once that choice is made, there's no undo button. If Remy releases what she's hinting at, this stops being gossip and becomes something far uglier. If Papoose announces an engagement, Remy's next move could be nuclear. Fans can feel it. The calm before the storm. The pause before impact. The moment where everyone involved knows they're standing on a fault line and one step could trigger an earthquake. And here's the real cliffhanger nobody's talking about. What if neither of them backs down? What if the engagement happens anyway? What if the receipts drop anyway? What if the couple once praised as the face of loyalty becomes the cautionary tale nobody saw coming? Because right now, this isn't just about Remy crashing out or Papoose being booed up. This is about pride, power. And who gets to write the final chapter of a story the world thought it already knew. And whatever happens next, it's going to be loud. If you've made it this far, don't even pretend this is just celebrity drama you can casually forget about. This is one of those moments where the story is still breathing, still shifting, and still waiting on the next move that could change everything overnight. Walking away now means you'll come back to the internet completely flipped, wondering how it got even crazier without you. This situation isn't cooling down, it's compressing. And when pressure builds like this, something always gives. So if you care even a little about how this ends, hit that like button right now. That tells the algorithm this story matters and keeps it from getting buried under fluff and distractions. Drop your thoughts in the comments because the audience reaction is part of what shapes what gets addressed next. People are watching what fans are saying, whether you believe it or not. And you need to subscribe immediately, not later, not after the next headline. Because when the next post drops, when a receipt surfaces, when an engagement gets confirmed or denied, it won't come with a warning. It will hit fast, and everyone will rush to react at the same time. Missing that moment means catching up after the damage is already done. Stay locked in. Stay ahead of the timeline. Because this story isn't finished being written, and when the next chapter drops, it's going to be impossible to ignore.